Hello, I'm Marina, and welcome to Addicted. So, today we have a really special guest on, Tricia Brannen, who is the Executive Director of YouthWell New Hampshire. And just to start off, could you tell us a bit about yourself and the kind of work that you do with YouthWell?
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Marina, for having me this evening. YouthWell New Hampshire is a nonprofit in New Hampshire. It's a little over 2.5 years old, and we started this nonprofit because we saw what was going on with young people and their mental health, and we really wanted to do something more impactful, and try to be part of the solution, to positively impact and improve the mental health of young people in our state. And what we've been doing over the last 2.5 years is providing funding for youth mental health programs, services, initiatives. We've also been partnering with other youth serving organizations beyond funding in any capacity that we can offer, to help them with their missions around youth mental health. So that's been a really wonderful way to be more impactful and to spread out over the state and connect and collaborate with other youth serving organizations. And then the third thing we do is advocacy work. So we make sure that we stay on top of policies, legislation in the state of New Hampshire that would either benefit youth mental health in our state or be detrimental to youth mental health in our state. And then we add our voices accordingly. We work very closely with two of the strongest advocacy organizations in our state. One is NAMI New Hampshire, and the other is New Futures. So they're wonderful partners in helping educate us so that we know what's happening, and then we can let educate the legislators on the bills that are coming forth, and to say, this is going to be harmful, or yes, please support this because this is going to
Mhm.
help youth in our state.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you. So, what do you feel like personally motivates you to do this kind of work, and why do you think it's really important, especially right now in our day and age?
Yeah, so what personally motivates me is really my own personal lived experience, the lived experience of my family members, the lived experience of my children who are now adults, but the mental health challenges and struggles they went through throughout their lives. So when I was a young person, my father was had a mental illness. He had clinical depression, and there were times as a child he was hospitalized, and he ended up dying by suicide when I was 14. But there was really we couldn't there wasn't really space for us to talk about it, and there really wasn't supports, at least that I knew of or that our family was accessing. So it was a very isolating and lonely time in my life, and I'm just really passionate just about young people in general and wanting to make sure
Mhm.
that they have what they need to be successful and to thrive. And when I say successful, I don't necessarily mean, um, monetarily or anything like that, but really to be able to be well and to thrive in their lives. And so yeah, I'm just fueled by my own personal experience and wanting to make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's really important.
Mm.
Yeah. So, from your point of view, what do you think is like a big misunderstanding that adults tend to have about what young people are struggling with today?
Yeah, so that was an interesting question. And a really great question. I was having a little bit of a hard time because I feel like, you know, it's clear what is happening. It's clear
Yeah.
that there should be no misunderstanding. But in being thoughtful of answering the question, I think the expectations of parents, um, over, I guess I would say maybe the last 20 years or so, I don't think I remember a time when there was so much pressure on young people. I mean, and I'm not talking about teenagers. I'm talking about from the get-go. It's like in second grade or first grade or whatever, or even,
Yeah.
5 years old, you have to be involved in like, all these different things. And, if you're not like playing basketball when you're five, you're never gonna be good. And just all
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
um, sports and academic excellence and making sure you're taking all the rigorous courses. So I don't think I think the misunderstanding is that like kids are under a lot of pressure. Like
Mhm.
maybe parents think that they can handle it and outwardly, um, you know, their children look like they're happy and they have it all together, but really deep inside, there's a lot of struggling going on. So, and if your, child isn't enthusiastic every minute of the day and being involved in 50 different things, it doesn't mean that they're lazy or they don't care or they're they are exhausted.
Mhm.
And I just feel like there's a great amount of pressure on young people that I certainly did not have when I was growing up. There were not these expectations of excellence in every, you know, part of your life. Um, and so I think sometimes, like kids in this generation aren't, tough enough or they
Yeah.
lazy, they don't want to work, and I really don't believe that.
Mm.
And I don't think, adults or parents, caregivers, whatever, I don't think they're intentionally, I think they're trying to do the best for their
Yeah.
children, but I think they just don't understand that stuff is coming at young people from all different directions. I mean, it's just a different world that
Mhm.
young people are living in. And I guess that's it. I hope I
Yeah.
answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible answer because I feel like you really hit the point there. I know a ton of people my age who are definitely experiencing that
Yeah.
and the pressure from every part of your life,
Yeah.
especially.
And I also want to say that lots of pressure comes internally, too,
Yeah.
like from society, like
Mhm.
maybe your
Yeah.
parents don't expect you to get, straight
Mhm.
A's or be on, you know, whatever year-round sports and 10 million clubs,
Yeah.
but that the pressure young people feel internally because of what's going on around them and what I
Yeah,
guess
definitely.
maybe society expects. It's really
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's really harmful, I think.
I feel like maybe like it's kind of like an imprint that happens, when you see people putting pressure on themselves and maybe it kind of reflects on how you feel about yourself, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So, if you could change like one thing about how communities overall tend to view like youth mental health challenges, what do you think it would be and like why?
So looking at communities and it's hard to pick one thing, but
Yeah.
I guess overall um communities being less judgmental and more compassionate and have empathy around youth mental health. I really feel strongly about early intervention, more prevention rather than reacting to a situation. So,
Yeah.
so, more compassion, which leads to wanting to
Hmm.
do prevention work and earlier
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
intervention, equipping families with preventative resources and providing treatment and care earlier so that
Mhm.
those things in place um, will reduce risks, reduce prolonging the struggles that young people endure and increase protective factors
Yeah.
for them to be well and to thrive. So I
Mhm.
think you start with more compassion and empathy, less judgment, and just uh, more preventative measures.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like preventative, Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And I think sometimes, in with the resources that are available where we're dealing just with the crises and we're reacting, but
Yeah,
if
yeah,
we
yeah.
if we can step back and we can look and say, okay, well, if we work on these things
Mhm.
earlier with families and young folks, maybe we can prevent some of those crises in the future. And so just really focusing on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So, from your point of view, why do you think so many teens tend to like lean into unhealthy coping behaviors instead of just, reaching out for help? Like just how we're talking about communities.
Yeah, really great question. And there is some research or statistics around from the start of a mental health challenge to the point at which somebody receives the treatment and help that they need can sometimes be anywhere from 8 to 11 years. And you think that is just like wild, right? I think the reasons are, um, uh, I think they're multiple. I believe that there's still a stigma, which I want to say that from when I was growing up to now, I mean, we have come like we've made huge strides. So, we are doing really well, but it's still there. I think that young people feel like they're either a failure because they can't handle what's ever happening to them. They think they should be able to handle it. Like, what's wrong with me? I should be able to handle it. So they try to handle it. And then they want to have instant relief from that emotional pain, or they just want that pain to stop or go away for a minute. So then they look to whatever it might be that's going to relieve that pain, whether it's substances or other, harmful
Yeah.
harmful things.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes I think that they just don't have the energy or capacity to
Yeah.
look for the help, or um, depending on what's happening in their family, they don't want to burden their families. They don't, there's like
Yeah.
so many things happening, or they don't really have, the caregivers, the adults in their lives may not have the capacity to help them, or they may not know how to help them. So that's why having many different adults around being aware and being educated, people in schools, educators, community members, a friend, anybody, to be able to say, hey, I've been noticing, it seems like you've been not yourself lately. Maybe, and then helping to direct them to help. But I think those are some of the reasons. And another thing, shame, I was talking about
Yeah.
feeling like a failure and feeling like you should be able to handle things. There's a lot of shame that goes along with that. So I think that's part of the, not
Mhm.
wanting to ask for help. Um, and another piece is not quite sure what is happening to them. They
Yeah,
don't know. It's like these thoughts and feelings are happening and they don't quite know what to do with them. And they're like, what's wrong with me? But
yeah,
I don't want to say that this is happening because they feel a sense of shame. Now, if they broke their arm, they're not going to feel a sense of shame, right? They're gonna they're gonna tell somebody, I broke my arm, like can I
yeah,
need
yeah,
um so we need to move from like a whole health perspective
yeah.
rather than mental health, physical health.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because I feel like, mental health reflects on your physical health all the time. So it's like,
Ab-
it,
Absolutely.
and they don't notice it until it reaches a point where it starts affecting the physical. So that's, I feel like, a big point. Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't know. So you're having these feelings, right? You might be having a mental health situation. You start using substances, but you have you're predisposed to addictive behavior or,
Mhm.
addiction. So then those substances then could lead to a substance use disorder.
Yeah.
And that is why mental health conditions and substance use disorder go hand in hand because it's either, maybe the substance use disorder brings on the mental health condition
Yeah.
or vice versa.
Yeah.
You really need to treat them together.
Yeah, and I also want to touch on a point that you said where I feel like a lot of people don't have, like the emotional capacity, right? You said,
Right.
like to reach out for help.
Right.
And I feel like that's really true. And I feel like, especially for like teens or like people my age, where it's, you're expected to react like an adult, but you don't
Mm,
have the experience to react like that just yet. So it's quite,
exactly. Exactly. Your brain is not fully developed.
yeah.
You know, that's why there's certain, you know, well, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later,
Hmm.
but there's certain, you can't drive until you're 16, you can't drink until you're 21. Um,
Yeah.
that's why there's those limitations. But yeah, I think we really do have to understand that um, brains aren't fully developed until I think it's around 25, depending on gender and some other things. But um, you know, uh, you're not going to react like an adult reacts. So, yeah.
Yeah. So going on to my next question, what kind of addictions or like harmful patterns do you think are becoming like the most concerning for youth today? And why do you think they're like increasing at such crazy rates?
Yeah. Um, so a couple things. So,
Mhm.
I really do feel that smartphones, um, there is research and it's well known that they have addictive qualities. Um, and unfortunately, they were sprung on, society
Yeah.
without any guardrails. I mean,
Hmm.
as a parent whose children were getting into their adolescence at the same time that smartphones came out, I can attest to the fact that we absolutely had no clue um, the addictive properties and
Hmm.
the harm that they could do. We were a family where our kids didn't get smartphones until, maybe high school, maybe, I don't know, sophomore
Yeah.
year or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but I will tell you that both my now adult children, um, uh, they had no, there were no rules around it because we didn't think we saw it as a phone. Like
Yeah.
we had no clue. And, I feel bad that we didn't know. So yes, they both, I think, have addictions to their phones and, they're trying to navigate through that. Vaping, I think, is another really, in my day, people smoke cigarettes. I,
Yeah.
young people don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but they're vaping, and I think they were kind of given a false narrative that vaping was healthier or healthy,
Yeah, I
or
guess.
I'm not, you know what I mean? But and the vaping of whatever the chemicals are that you're vaping, there's addictive
Hmm.
properties, and I think that that has become something that's very concerning. Cannabis is another concern, and I do believe cannabis is an addictive drug.
Yeah.
When in my day, they didn't really talk about marijuana as being an addictive substance, but the cannabis now is so much more potent, and that is very concerning and scary, that not only what's vaped, but all of the other products, the gummies and the
Yeah.
plethora of products. Um, and I don't think people know exactly what they're consuming, and that's
Yeah.
scary. Um, why do so those are, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
the addictive things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do feel like loneliness. I think that there's an epidemic of loneliness. A lot of the research now is talking about loneliness among youth and also older folks, and that lack of personal connection.
Yeah.
Um, and just fear. There's so much fear and anxiety because there's a 24/7 newsreel going on. Um, I
Yeah.
didn't know what was happening in the world when I was a young person. I didn't even like watching the news. Like, that was the worst thing. If when my dad put the news on, it was like everyone left the room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, we did not have a clue what was going on in the world. And young people today, as young as, even elementary school kids, right? They know, or they're have access to everything all the time. So,
Yeah.
and adults can't really process, and we have our fully formed brain, right? Adults can't really process a lot, especially, what's gone on in the last few days,
Yeah.
locally and around the world, has been
Mhm.
devastating. And I'm
Yeah.
having a hard time with it. And I can only imagine, you know, a young person, how can we expect young people to process all of this data coming so quickly, and all of these things, when it's hard for us as adults? So, um, I think I think those are the reasons. I think the anxiety about just being exposed to every single thing happening,
Yeah.
like right away,
And I feel like it's kind of a sort of oversaturation of information we're getting. Even
Yes.
from like social media, it's just like, constantly, oh, new trend. Oh, this, you gotta go buy this new thing right now.
Yes, exactly. Isn't that
Yeah,
exhausting? It's a
it
lot of
is. Yeah. And you don't even notice how like, exhausting it gets. So,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, I feel like lots of times I'm so clueless, like this 6-7 thing, I didn't have any idea. I still don't even understand it, but whatever.
Yeah.
I'm probably never gonna understand it. But I'm like, what are you talking about? But
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have to know every little thing that's happening. I mean, I feel for you, and I feel like I would just want to, like, crawl inside, under my covers, and
Yeah.
I don't want to hear anymore.
Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask on your like perspective on social media and how that's kind of affecting like
Yeah.
youth mental health, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media plays a huge role in mental health. And like I said, well, we missed the boat for several years
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
about properly educating young people on the effects and adults.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
I've apologized to my adult children several times because I'm like, I just, in some ways I felt like I failed them because I didn't know. And,
Mhm.
we just weren't technologically savvy. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
but I get, that's no excuse. Like, I feel like that was an excuse I should have known, but I just didn't put a
yeah. But
phone
no one
with,
knew. I
right,
don't
a
think
phone with
anyone
an
knew.
addictive
Yeah,
with
you
addictive
know,
content. So I think education is key,
mhm.
right? Really, I think social media and technology can be used very positively.
Yeah,
And, but we need to provide education and guidance. I
yeah,
think in many ways it's a wonderful way to share information and to share, with our families far away or things like that, and to make connections with people that we might never have made a connection with, right? You can connect with people around the world, and it has um, uh, a lot of good qualities.
yeah,
But I think that now that we understand the research and we understand its effects, we really need to start not only educating young people, but educating their parents and making
yeah,
sure that boundaries and limits and, we need to put guardrails on there. And like I said, I think it's like any other thing, that there's a reason why you're not able to drive a car when you're 12, or whatever,
yeah,
or
yeah,
or
yeah.
drink alcohol when you're, I mean, even though I know
Yeah,
people do, but like
yeah, the point stand.
by
Yeah,
by saying we want you to wait until whatever, and I don't know, just saying like 16 before you have social media or whatever. There's a
hmm.
reason behind that. And then we educate about the research and you know, the effects on the brain. I mean, there's literal effects on the wiring of people's brains. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like, it's become almost like normalized to, for parents to, like when you sit at a restaurant, for example, and you see all these kids with iPads, and I'm like, huh, wait, I never had that. This is so weird.
Yeah,
It's
I
almost
just
like become normal for like parents, to keep their kids entertained with just an iPad, and I feel like that's such a interesting phenomenon,
I agree with you, and I feel like they're missing out. The whole family's
Yeah.
missing out on that like co family conversation and
Yeah,
you
that's
know
so true.
all of that and that connection. I yeah, I have a hard time when I go to a restaurant and I'm like, what is happening here? Why isn't anybody talking? Even like a couple go out
Yeah.
and they're both on their phones sitting across from each other, and I'm like, why are you even going out? But
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I find it just it's mind blowing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think we need to get back to those family conversations and teaching kids how to sit at a restaurant and,
Yeah.
not going, they don't have to have a screen in front of them to, sit and enjoy being out. It's like you're
Yeah.
learning about how to be social and what, all the, how to be in a restaurant, how to be out in public. Those are
Yeah.
all critical skills um, that in some ways are getting lost.
Yeah. So, what do you think is like the most effective way to reduce the stigma, so young people feel more safe talking about mental health nowadays?
Yes. So I think that it is really important to just make it part of the regular conversation. I mean, just mental health, substance use, part of the your daily regular conversation, just like you talk about what did you do in school today, or whatever, like
Hmm.
how's your sleeping, or were you able to get outside and and get some, you know take a walk or whatever. Make mental health simply part of our health and don't separate the two.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, Trying to think of um, mental health as just as important, equally important as how we treat our physical health. Like I was saying,
Yeah.
um, we would if something happens, if we're having a heart attack, we're not going to wait 11 years to go to the ER. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's a little,
But yeah,
but our brain is an organ and part of our physical being and part of our physical health, just like all of our other organs. And it's the only organ that's looked at differently. And I don't understand why. I think it's really interesting.
yeah,
But I think we need to just be more open about having conversations. I think sharing our own personal stories in just a regular conversation. I've noticed that um, uh, young people want to talk, they want to share. And I think they're more open to talk about what's going on. With their health in general, but if
yeah,
we're talking about mental health, I think they're more open. And when you share something about yourself,
yeah,
it gives permission of other people to talk about their situation. And so, um, meeting young people where they are, and just providing non-judgmental listening conversation, um, provide care and compassion, education and guidance, as it in a
Mhm.
natural way. You don't as it naturally organically happens in a
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
Be curious about, like what does using substances, how does that help you? You know what I mean? Like when you approach sometimes as, you shouldn't do drugs, don't do drugs, all that kind of stuff. It, it's not like the most effective way, but being curious and then trying to find out what are what are the benefits to them? What are they getting out of it? And then you can kind of, get a little bit deeper under the layers. And then providing information, on the harms and risks of using substances, or, when you're, what are the signs to look for that might indicate a mental health issue. And then where there are resources to access when they're ready, because I think people need to be ready, whether you're young or old or whatever, you need to be ready, right?
yeah,
To accept the help. And so being just more open and gentle and compassionate and curious will lend to, I think, maybe people listening a little bit better, because they're not on the defensive, because you're not saying, you know, you're ruining your life,
yeah.
all this stuff. So
Yeah. No, those are some really good points because I feel like at the end of the day, everyone's just wants to feel understood.
yeah,
And you can really help someone once, they feel safe to share things with you and they feel that you
yeah,
understand their point of view and what they're struggling with. So yeah, I feel like
yeah.
it's really important.
People want to be seen, right? They want to be validated. They want to be understood. And honestly, we might not even understand, but we can still be
We try.
compassionate, right? And
Yeah.
non-judgmental, and just be curious, like, wow, I never thought of it that way. Or you know what I mean? Like
That's all that matters. Yeah.
just being with the person, and then yeah, that trust um can manifest, and then hopefully when they are ready, you might be that trusted person that could help, that they'll come to, and then hopefully they can
Yeah,
get help.
sure.
Yeah.
So just to wrap things up, if you could give one piece of advice,
Mm.
purely your own opinion, to someone around my age regarding mental health, what would it be?
Yeah, so I would say make space in your life for you.
Mm.
Like be, simply be
Mhm.
you, right? Be the real you, not what others say you
Yeah,
are.
I love
Um,
that. Yeah.
what are you passionate about? What
Mhm.
brings you joy? Where does your happiness come from?
Yeah,
What fuels your soul and ignites your energy? I mean, I know sometimes people might think that those questions are kind of out there, but they're
yeah,
not. They're really not out there. Those are important questions to ask yourself. Whatever the answers are to
yeah,
those questions, focus on that. Make time for those things.
yeah, it's for
You
sure.
know, this is how I feel. Life is too short, and I think you need to be true to who you are. And
Mhm.
hopefully you have supportive people around you. And if you don't, finding somebody who you who
Yeah,
is supportive, to be able to navigate around those barriers. And if you don't have the answers to those questions, because sometimes people might be like, I don't know the answers to those questions. Oh, I must be a failure. I don't even know myself. So
mhm.
try to, kind of flip the switch and then try different things, explore
Yeah,
interests, um, try new things, like step outside of your comfort zone, or um, just discover your talents. Every single person has talents,
yeah,
just that are innate to them. And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves time to discover those talents. Um, and yeah, I believe all people have a passion and a purpose, and I guess our job is to discover it, right? And
yeah.
I really do believe that aligning who you
Mhm.
are with your life's work, or with, the things that you're passionate about, um, is huge for your mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, all those other like self-care things where go for a walk
Hey.
in nature, exercise, all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff, that's all great. But
Yeah,
if we get right down to it, um, making space for who you are.
yeah. At the end of the day, it all comes back to you and how you feel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So that's it for today. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for sharing all of your stories and your input on all these questions.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for
So much for coming
creating
on.
this platform.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on and for sharing. So it was a wonderful time. Thank
It was great. Thank you so much,
you so
Marina.
much. Thank you. Have a
Good
good
luck.
night.
Take care.
Bye.
You too.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Have a good one.